think it's turned off. We have a working mic over here.
Yes, we do. Oh, there we go.
Okay, from it there, it looked like 2D would have, or rather 2D would have a disadvantage compared to 3D.
It's okay, I'm very loud. I don't need a microphone, actually.
Well, you know, 2D has this, you know, they're a bit outdated. They're late on a lot of things, including right now. Yeah.
Okay, my argument is so strong that I only need one.
Ooh.
Fight. Oh, no.
That's right, it's going to be a YouTube fight. It'll involve lots of slapping and owies and going, you piece. Oh, that'd be good.
Why,
when you work in the animation industry, you have so much bottle anger. Most of it comes from David Zaslav. But you have so much bottle anger, you need to get it against someone. And we're going to make it useful against each other.
Yeah.
Anger has its usefulness, especially for our entertainment.
Damn right.
This is my scheming hand pose.
You turned to scheme mode.
Yep.
Kind of just looks like you got your finger stuck in a Chinese finger trap.
That I can neither confirm nor deny that has happened before. But here, now we're all happy, now we're scheming. Now we're happy, now we're scheming.
Well, one thing I did discover is that cartoons do give a very, very biased and very skewed representation of Chinese finger traps.
Oh.
Like I won one when I went to the arcade last time. It's so easy to get out of it.
There we go.
Here we are. Our little Fluffy. Yes.
Oh, that's why.
Believe me, I know that struggle.
Making some last minute sales.
Even better.
Yeah.
Have you all come by Z Fluffy's vendor hall booth? Yes.
If you haven't, shame on you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, shame on me. I gotta go there now.
Yeah. Well, now you have a goal, a target, a mission. Go forth and buy.
Yeah, I'll be back.
But don't go forth just yet. We worked really hard on this presentation.
Yes.
I think I paid for some of your stuff in bits, also known as $1 coins.
$1.
Oh, that was you?
Pennies?
Oh my God.
Oh, wait.
I came back and I was so confused. There was just a pile of money.
Wow.
I asked for silver dollars and they said, is gold okay?
No, that's amazing. Oh my God. That was so funny.
Spoiler alert, it was Monopoly money.
In that case,
That's
you
less of-
committed theft and you need to return the items post-haste.
You're not getting
You
out
also
of
have to
jail
return
that
the
one.
Monopoly money.
Well, with inflation and all, it is probably worth as much as real money. So.
Oh dear. All right, well, we turn from economics, which is inherently depressing,
To animation, which is slightly less depressing.
slightly less depressing,
Animation
as we have 2D versus 3D, the amazing digital battle. And I am your totally bipartisan, not biased host, Silver Quill, because I am bad at any kind of animating. I can't stack up, so you know. I'm down here. These folks are up here. So we will have, starting with our 2D team, let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, my name is Petarep. Is this working? I don't know. I'm just going to talk. Hi, my name is Petarep. I do the art for Rainbow Dash Presents. I've since been doing animation for various music videos, all using 2D and a little bit of 3D and After Effects.
Woo!
Yes.
Yes. It's all 2D. Anyway.
Yeah, no. Hi, I'm Justine, aka Fluffy. I work on Hell of a Boss, and I work on the finale of Has Been Hotel. I am a background artist, but I dabble in some animation here and there on my side projects, personal projects. Yeah, and 2D is definitely my preferred form of art, but I have appreciation for 3D. I just don't like doing it.
That sounded respectful. We'll have none of that here.
I mean, 3D sucks, boo!
There we go.
So I am Meteoroot. I am a CG generalist. I work in the animation industry with 3D animation productions. I've worked on live action productions as well. and I really like doing 3D that kind of looks like 2D. So I think I want to show why 3D can do lots of incredible things.
Right. Hello, I am ACLP Films. Most people call me AC. I'm mostly an SFM animator who mostly makes SFM Ponies. Mostly doing for entertainment, comedy, and stuff that you can turn stuff codified for scenes. So mostly do it for entertainment purposes. So, yeah.
There we go.
What else do you do?
Now, we tried having a 2D versus 3D at Everfree, I believe it was.
We did.
And it was very wholesome and respectful. I'm hoping we won't have a repeat of that.
I apologize. I mean, I don't apologize. I just, you know, I do the opposite of apologizing, but I won't do that again.
All right. Oh, okay. Oh, he's rare to go. Rare to go.
I mean, Minty, it's in your blood. You're Canadian.
Yep.
Well, we're going to start off by talking about the elements of character design, because what is animation if you can't have, well, a character to animate? You have a ghost on the landscape. It's kind of weird. So, 2D. As I understand it, you guys have to do a little thing called a turnaround. Every now and then I fall apart. Right round, baby, right round. Like a record, baby, right round. Tell us about this old 2D shindig.
You want me to? Okay. So I went to art school and we had to do these for homework assignments. And everyone else in my class was like, I hate doing turnarounds, I hate doing turnarounds. Well, I'm a psychopath and I like doing turnarounds. Oh, there.
Got a bad
It got scared.
You're trying to silence us.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just scream. I hope you guys can hear me in the back there.
Okay.
Okay, thank good. Save my vocal cords. So I like doing turnarounds because, yeah, I don't know what it is about it. Well, no, I do know what it is about it, and I'll tell you. I like it because I get curious. I get curious about, okay, I like this character, it looks really cool from this angle, but we need to show how it looks from this angle. Oh, I'm so excited to show you how it looks from this angle because it's important and this connects to this, and it's really important that I show you how it works because if you bring it to a 2D artist, they need to have it, be seen it from every angle because you don't want to have an animator questioning, how does this look? Wait, I don't know how to do this. And then they make their own interpretation of it. And then you get another animator doing the same exact thing, and they don't look the same. So that's why you have this, for consistency, yeah, across the board.
It's also really fun to turn it into an animated GIF.
But eventually the character gets seasick.
Yes.
Now, you 3D folk, you don't... Ooh. Folk. F-O-L-K. Just so we're clear what I'm saying. You don't have to do a turnaround because your character is, well, exists in all angles. This was a piece I found online. I had many, many questions.
So it's worth noting that you'll still sometimes have turnarounds for the models because you're going to have 2D artists giving us things to actually make good in 3D. What they'll usually do instead of full turnarounds is basically just a front, a side, and sometimes some specific features to work on. The problem that you'll have with 3D is that you need to make a shell of, basically it's a shell that is going to bend. Think of it a bit like you're going to have a puppet that you can actually physically stretch, but the thing is that you need to make it in a way where you know that the arms will bend in a specific way. You can't just, for example, just draw a piece in a very specific angle. For example, one of the best example I can give of 3D having struggles is SpongeBob, Sponge of Water.
The movie?
The 3D one that...
SpongeBob, Fish Out of Water. Fish Out of Water.
For sure. Okay, so... I think it's
Sponge out of water.
In French, it was SpongeBob, I surrender. Oh!
Something like that. But whenever they would need to make crazy faces or crazy body types, they would need to build a whole new shape for the body. And it's quite a lot of pain. So what you need to do with 3D is that you need to make a shell that will be as versatile as possible. For example, one of the problems too, whenever you have animated animals that have to be anthropomorphic in a way where they walk on their back legs sometimes, sometimes you'll have a full different model just for when they're bipedal and one where they are quadrupedal. And having those two is quite a nightmare. So you need, so when it comes to character design in 3D, you have to account for that, and you also need to make sure it looks good from all the angles. So one of the things that they'll do often is that they'll do sculpts. You have in ZBrush, it's basically think of it like clay, but all on the computer. So you have the control Z, you have all the features. And it doesn't give you anything that's good to animate yet, but it gives you something you can actually look at from all those angles, and you can actually prove that it's viable for the actual model to work with.
On that topic, who here wishes life came with an undo button?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, that can exist if you have lots of money.
Earth had an undo button.
And we're back to economics. Oh my goodness.
I said birth. I said birth.
Okay, that we can't fix.
Now, AC, what about you in dealing with the character design in a 3D?
I'll try to make this short. So yeah, with character design, I mostly use it just to make references, or usually when you want to make a character design, you need to have like a reference on how this character would look and how this will apply to making it into this animation. So usually you just need to have include something like a reference sheet. Try to get a reference to what do you think it should look when you try to animate here in 3D, especially in 3D.
Ah, okay. Didn't mean to cut you off. Anything you'd like to add?
I think that's just a bit.
Alrighty. So, basically, right now, it sounds like everybody has to rely a bit on the 2D at some point to design a character. Any objection?
Has anybody used Microsoft Paint bases to make their OCs for the first time?
I have.
That's how we all get started in digital art.
That's how I started.
Yeah.
I used to start with bases.
Yeah.
Now I make full-on art.
I tried using Microsoft Paint when I was a little kid, which means no one else on this stage was alive at the time.
Well, I do remember back when you only had 3 undos with MS Paint. You remember that?
Oh dear.
Do you remember when there was no internet and you had nothing to do, so you just wiggle things, just start working with a paintbrush and do the most impressionist thing ever?
I remember when Rock was young. Me and Susie had so much fun. But anyway.
Y'all were talking about MS Paint, but do you remember the 3D Pony Maker site?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pony Creator?
That one.
Yeah, Pony Creator.
Oh yeah, that one.
Speaking of ponies, let's talk Princess Celestia and her hair for a minute. Mane, sure, but we're going to call it hair.
Princess.
Now, I've always wondered, how does she have any peripheral vision in this situation? I mean, you could really sneak up to her on her right side and just take her totally by surprise. I think that's how she gets kidnapped so often. So I'm curious, how does 2D handle a character with rather wild hair?
Well, I think you'll find that if she turns her head the other way, her hair will be on the other side, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, but that must be one heck of a hair flip.
You just flip it.
I'm just surprised Princess Celestia hasn't like taken out someone just with a hair whip.
As far as we know.
Her face is always facing the camera, and it's fine. There's nothing to worry about.
So that's your trick?
That's the beauty of 2D animation is you don't have to apply logic to it. We can force perspective. We can force main being on certain sides of heads.
Forced logic.
Forced logic.
Oh, we're getting just a little ahead, but would you explain forced perspective to the audience? Nodding, scheming, right here.
This is a crime against 3D.
No.
So in background art, I have to do forced perspective a lot because a lot of times the way you want an angle with these characters does not match the angle you want the background. So you have to pretend that everything else is in perspective and make it look like it's not wonky, but it's not actually in perspective. And that just means all the lines are going to a specific vanishing point. Your eyeballs hit a certain point in the horizon line, versus like, I'm going straight on right there, one vanishing point, I'm going straight here, okay, I got vanishing point, all the lines are going to go towards that vanishing point. Versus, sometimes you have to pretend that there's another vanishing point over there or over there, But yeah. But you can fudge it in 2D.
All right.
Great.
So
it's worth noting that even in 3D you can. It's worth noting that even in 3D you can actually cheat with the perspective. For example, when the idea of foreshortening, the idea that, for example, you have a character who's doing something very close to the camera, and you really exaggerate the perspective. In 3D, you can actually scale limbs. For example, if you want the hand to be twice the size. So what you can do is basically you just go and exaggerate the size of the hand, and since it's in 3D, and most shows, whether I say shows.
It's an illusion.
Well, I say shows, movies are called shows in the animation industry, in the film industry. The whole idea is that sometimes they'll exaggerate it because they're not going to be released in stereoscopic 3D, so you won't really notice it with your own eyes. And the lighters will make sure that the lighting looks like it would look the cover way, so they might just add some extra point light so it just lit the normal way. So they do actually exaggerate with that kind of perspective. Sometimes they do tricks of perspective just to be able to get away with the character doing some really crazy movement that doesn't really make sense in 3D. Just to try to replicate the kind of crazy things that doesn't make sense in 2D that you do. That's a crime against nature.
Now, in terms of animating hair with your cold logic of 3D computers,
oh, that's a rabbit hole you're gonna fall into.
Oh, we're going down that rabbit hole because I understand there are 3 ways to animate hair in 3D.
You reduced it to 3?
Whoa.
Well, 3 branches.
I've only got about an hour to cover this.
Oh, yes.
So first we have sculpted. Tell me about the sculpt.
Okay, so think of it like you'd look at, remember those pony toys where the hair is literally just plastic and that's it? You're gonna see, for example, it's mostly for 3D TV shows where they're just gonna have hair that's always static, always that haircut. Sometimes they're gonna have some texture on it to make it kind of look like hair, but it will always have that shape. And the whole, for example, if you look at actually best example with the 3D types is actually with G5. If you look at a Maritime Bay Adventure, whenever there's 3 models that are seen close, you're going to notice that the hair is actually just a static rig that just has the shape of the hair with some texture of the hair, and that's it. And it works pretty fine for video game, but because you don't have the best of expectations, and the texture did well to look good. One of the disadvantages of that is that unlike regular hair where you can actually split it like this, if you go with sculpted hair, it's stuck in that position always. It doesn't have the opportunity to actually move much unless you actually do a sculpt that has the actual shape. So for example, if you had a scene where you have a character who's brushing their hair, you would need a proper piece that's modeled and rigged just for the hair that just gets brushed, which is quite a nightmare. So it's a lot for the kind of productions where they would actually go in that direction. So video games, cheap TV shows, maybe movies where it's kind of part of the style. And then you have simulated, like in a new generation where the hair, the idea of think of it as strands of wires, and those strands are simulated to follow the physics, and what it can do is that if you have the character who's moving, it's going to follow the movement with the kind of movement that you'd have, and then you can add wind if you want, you can add any kind of source of force to try to push it. You're going to notice that there's quite a lot of hair in that head. And the thing with that is that they don't actually simulate every single hair of that. What they're going to do is they're going to simulate a couple, and they are going to have, they're called children, and the whole idea is that basically fake hair, it just follows the trajectory of the main ones that are simulated. And it really helps because you get enough range to get the kind of motion you need. So if someone has hair that just flows in the wind, it just follows the physics and it looks incredible. It's pretty good for that. So if you look at the movie, the hair that they have looked incredible. And then if you look at the show, they also have hair that kind of looks like the movie one, but it doesn't flow as much. The whole idea is it's the same kind of hair, but instead of following a simulation with that kind of thing, they actually follow bones that are animated. So whenever you have a character turning their head, what you'd have is a bone that you also animate to do that kind of pendulum, that kind of effect of follow-through. And it's quite a nightmare if you want to do anything fancy. And if you look at the maker mark, the whole thing, you're going to notice that the hair doesn't do anything crazy. It's also pretty wild if you look at Misty, because she has very big hair that would go in all directions, but it's mostly constrained. And with that kind of TV pipeline, I can fully understand why they wouldn't want something too complex to do. It's way too crazy. So it's quite a challenge, and you have to check which one of those three would fit your kind of production and your budget. Or you could just draw it in 2D.
But you draw 2D. Now, what about in Source Filmmaker? I imagine that most of those are sculpted.
For the hairs?
For the hairs.
Oh yeah, for Source Filmmaker, yes, they use something with the SFM ponies, like the jiggle bones.
Jiggle bones.
The jiggle bones. Yes, they have, with Source Filmmaker, they use like the enhanced version and the revamped version. Some of them are, well, the thing is with Source, with the models, it pretty much does the jiggle bones for you, like does it automatically. But sometimes when you do them automatically, it kind of messed up and like freaks out and not consistent to where it's supposed to be. So usually I have to do it manually and just use each keyframe to use to keyframe every jiggle bones individually to make it not look like it's freaking out. So usually I just done things manually. You can also use that to make some shaky movements and pretty much stuff with the jiggle bone, they call it.
That's just a fun phrase, jiggle bone.
John's just saying it's horrible.
I do have an example of the sculpted one.
Oh, there you go.
My model right here.
Yeah. Yeah, just real quick, we've heard that with the flexibility of 2D, you can just have Celestia's hair. Whoop! But how would 3D have to handle that? Would you need like a totally separate model of the hair on either side?
Well, the thing that you also have to consider is that 3D is not something that just exists in an empty space. You're going to have people just carefully planning everything for every single shot. So you might just have a piece that's right there that just floats in the air on the rig, but you're going to have the animator who carefully puts it behind her in every single shot. And if she has to turn her head, just animate it to just go in the other direction. With a motion blur, you don't notice it. And you're also going to have...
I'll notice.
And of course, with 2D, you're going to notice because I'm going to brag about it. But in 2D, what you do is that you can layer it separately. But the thing with 3D is that you also have to consider comp segment where you could actually render it separately. And then in comp, just put it behind. And you can actually cheat a lot for that kind of thing. So if you have characters doing magic tricks or all kind of weird things that just doesn't make any sense, you can actually cheat the layering just to make it work.
Wait. Are you saying magic isn't real?
No. I say Trixie's magic isn't real. Stage magic.
Uses magic to perform fake magic.
My worldview is just shattered.
But it's okay, friendship is real. And that
Maybe the real magic.
Oh, of course it is. It always will be.
Now, in terms of how you stylize, we've talked about exaggerating things for forced perspective. We've talked about tricks to layer, to create illusions, but stylization is big to do especially now, because what I've heard is that 2D offers greater flexibility to make a style.
I think it's a little bit easier to do it that way, just simply because you can do, like, I really love doing like a flat style every once in a while where, like, it's something that's like really hard to translate into 3D. If you're trying to simulate, you can do it. I've seen people do it, but it's hard to do. And you can there's so many options just to explore different art styles and stuff like that, and I think you should speak to it because Has-Been's very
stylish.
Very stylish.
I think another thing too that helps with 2Ds and its stylization with the flexibility is that you can get away with certain movements and stuff when they're not shaded and they're not rendered fully. It doesn't look weird in certain aspects. One thing I really prefer about the 2D with the ponies, especially facial expressions, really able to pull these like goofy, crazy ass looking, looking expressions, and I love that about 2D, and you see that with Has-Been and Tell of a Boss, all these funky expressions. One of my favorite things about 2D animation is a little thing called smear frames. I'm sure you've seen like clips of like Disney animation pause at the wrong moments, Those are smear frames. They're the in-between frames where the animators get to basically go crazy with these facial expressions, hold them, and give movement while it's moving across the screen. But it helps with these funky, crazy facial expressions and these crazy wild movements, and that's what I like about flexibility with 2D.
Draw that crazy expression, artist. Now 3D, it's more difficult to stylize, but as Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse showed us, not by no means impossible.
So if you look back at early 3D animation, one of the things that they wanted to go with when it came to stylization was less about the rendering and more the proportions and more the textures. So for example, if you look at early Pixar movies, they had really weird proportions, I think in terms of character, but they would have more realistic environments with realistic textures. And it worked well for the needs that they had, but eventually people, and one of the, people do credit Spider-Verse for that, but I think one of the best examples I can give of one of the earlier designs, or earlier short films, Paperman, where they wanted to have the aesthetic of 2D animation, and the explanation that they gave is we have so much great concept art, and we kind of feel sad not having the art that we produced that looks like concept art. So, and the approach that they had was coming from the rendering, and all of it comes down through recipes. One thing with, for example, cel shading, the whole idea is that you set a threshold of when the light goes and when the light stops. By basically just crunching down something that should be a gradient. And the problem that you have with it when you have, and you're going to notice it with a lot of video games, for example, Breath of the Wild that actually has cel shading, you're going to notice that the cel shading really flickers around some videos and it feels like it's undecisive on what kind of shading to get, all because it just follows the recipe and it's at a very, very certain threshold. But with 3D, when it comes to animated productions, since you have control of every single frame, you might have a recipe to do the first pass, but with Spider-Verse, for example, one of the things that we did is that right above the fully done animation, they actually did corrections to make it look like what they had in mind. They also added extra lines to add some exaggerations. For example, if they had work with raise an eyebrow. With the 3D model, it's kind of hard to see because it's just shaded like in a photorealistic manner. But with Spider-Verse, they actually just drew an actual line, like in comics, that actually gave the emphasis. And that's one of the things I'm really glad of that is finally catching up. It's really the idea that we actually treat it like a canvas that we actually paint on instead of just being a computer-generated picture that just comes down from a sophisticated render. And the fact that it's actually more artistic driven is so much better for the overall result, because it also proves, because if you look at the renders of Spider-Verse, none of it just looks like it just comes down to very, very fancy tech. It all comes down to very good artists doing their work, and we're really glad of it.
Now, as far as filmmaker, as far as I know, how hard is it to stylize in there, as I feel like most people expect the compositions and characters to be pretty standard.
Okay, the way I style with my animations, pretty much, or source filmmaker, is pretty much usually requires a scene build. So usually what I have to do is just set up objects, a scene to where I want it to, because usually it provides a map that's already been pre-made, which sometimes it doesn't really work. So usually I just use provided lighting, provided the models, and pretty much getting to, like you're having the freedom to place any objects on there and just figure out what should be on there and how the scene can work. So that's what I usually use for mostly. The scene builds is what I usually do rather than the pre-made maps.
Okay. Now, when you guys were talking about recipes for 3D, all I could picture was Gordon Ramsay as a programmer.
Where's the sauce?
Raw!
It's raw!
Raw! Tell him, no, it's not raw. It's log.
Oh gosh.
Nicely done.
A joke for photographs around.
Well, continuing the theme of stylization, AI used for concept art.
No!
I think I finally got a topic everyone can agree on. It's interesting because there was a panel earlier today on AI artwork and how people use it. Their argument being that it was a tool for the mundane tasks or stuff that animators don't want to waste a lot of time on. But concept arts, why is concept art too important for AI to create?
Well, so I went to school for basically concept art. So this is kind of a it's like a little ping in my, like, it's almost a personal attack. For one, my idea with AI is that it should be a tool to help people who have the job. So not to take jobs, not to streamline things, but to help that, you know. So with a concept artist, you know, you'd be replacing an entire job with a computer that would do like a halfway good version of that, just because art is an expression of the human experience. You can't get that with artificial intelligence because it is spliced from other artists and it becomes this like creepy chimera art. Like I look at this and I'm just like, I find it creepy because of that.
It feels like weird.
Yeah, like an important aspect, like the role that concept art plays is like setting the tone and feel for the whole art. Mm-hmm. And if you're exporting that out to some machine that's just going to pop out derivative images, it's your whole basis for your creative vision is going to start with a level of derivativeness. And if you really want that creative, interesting spark that's going to make people really interested, excited, or give your creative piece that like unique point, then you definitely don't want to rely on AI for concept art. Yeah. And again, the moral question of like it's stealing art from other people is also just a whole separate thing from the effectiveness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like building a house on a rotten egg. You know, your entire house is going to smell like that rotten egg, and the AI is the rotten egg. It's just poisoning everything throughout the entire process.
Yes.
But what if the house you're building on the rotten egg is a shell company?
You know, but they just don't deserve any money.
Fair enough.
It's also worth noting that AI doesn't really come up with ideas. It just it basically generates randomness out of a pre-existing library. It doesn't really have the spark people have. But the thing is that it just smudges together things that it already has. So what you're doing is not concept art. You're basically just making a mood board out of existing arts that other people did. Mm-hmm. But you're skipping the middleman by trying to smudge it to make some kind of weird photo hash that looks like weird things. And then you notice afterwards, because one of the problems with AI is that just like concept art, like sometimes the concept art is not the most defined. You're going to see some paintbrushes of the rough that can give a good idea, at least of the overall idea. But AI has that waxy, not detailed but busy look that feels very procedural. Like you look at that and you feel like none of that really has storytelling. It just doesn't really have that feel that you're looking at something that has been built over time. Because, for example, you could look at, you could draw, for example, a mountain, and the way that you look at the mountain, like it has massive significance for the culture that lives around it, like it's seen as their god. But for that, it's literally just this flashed a couple of mountains together and just made a random shape, and that's it. You can't really make, you can't really inject the theme, and you can't really inject the story in like that.
Yeah, with AI, it just does it like randomly. Like it's trying to find the answers, but knowing you're not really sure how you're going to follow with that. So sometimes you may follow with that kind of AI device, and it may take you to some wrong way, which not good. So that's the thing. It's just you're only using it just to assist on things that would help for your project, but not try to take away from the other artists and creators. It's just more to assist and pretty much tools, like you're trying to upscale something when a quality is kind of poor or something. Yes.
I would never do that. Oh, I just wanted to add to basically, I feel like AI, it makes art, it thinks looks good without knowing why it looks good.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, so I think I found conformity. Nobody wants AI concept art.
As an art student, I feel disgusted by looking at this.
So I'm sorry, I'm talking over you. But you're an art student.
As an art student, yes, I actually do feel disgusted looking at that, especially when I see all this stuff and yes, it's coming from human experience when you're actually doing it. But with AI, like how are you going to tell the story?
Machines are not artists.
No, my art is real. That is not.
And artists are not machines.
No.
Okay, I'm going to put that on a plaque at my next vending table. Nobody else gets to use it. I call it.
Hey, AI believers, pick up a pencil.
Don't be afraid.
Yes.
On the AI concept art page, the guy in the bottom right corner, did he have enough fingers on each hand?
It's pretty dang tiny.
No. It's an alien race that has a random number of fingers. It's very deeply ingrained in their culture and the number of fingers that they have.
It's always random.
It's really
My
important.
very original alien race.
And he's trying to tell you that he caught a fish this big.
You're going to Disney art levels here.
You should have seen it.
Now, then, hello.
There's this website that's supposed to help you figure out if an image is AI or not. It doesn't work. I loaded in images that I drew myself, and it flagged almost all of them as AI.
Okay.
Yes. That means you're doing great.
Yes.
Yes, I saw that one. Yeah.
Well, it's also worth noting you're literally asking AI. Is it AI? If the AI can't draw if the AI draw like shit, it's not gonna be able to also know if something is good or something's legit.
Is this you?
You know what they say, it takes one to know one.
Yeah.
Is this you?
That's a head over yonder.
We're probably taking the whole panel on a tangent. I don't know if that's just fun for you guys to watch us do the talking.
No, it's even better for us.
Yeah, but coming from the AI panel and having actually went and done lunch with the folks and so on, the general perspective was not only is it you're asking AI to check AI, the hashing thing that's supposed to mess it up not only works if you're using the same AI model to try and counter itself, and in the long term it's probably just going to be edited out by the next version. So not a long-term fix either. But yeah, in general, it's like if you're trying to do especially your concept art with AI, that's where you're trying to save on creativity.
Yeah, that's the most creative part of the entire. That's the most creative part of the entire production, and that's where you that's the worst part to where you want to use it.
This is my kind of panel.
Just making sure we're good on time. Is there any place in the process where AI would be helpful?
No.
And it wouldn't endanger someone's job?
I do actually.
Sometimes.
So I do actually have an example for that. I saw recently someone was using it for a game that they had, and they had an interactive experience with a character that used basically a version of ChatGPT to interact with the character and have a unique experience with this character. I thought that was really cool because, yeah, that's nothing else could do that. That's an AI only thing. You couldn't have a human like constantly typing back with people while they're playing. It makes sense for AI to be used in that because, you know, not gonna take in anyone's job for that.
Okay.
Yes.
And just a limited capacity there is use for creating like in between frames for specific animations, but you still want to be sure that the artist has an ability to determine, so like refine and select those, because like there's the concept of like bend and squish or like the timing and animation, and AI doesn't understand that. And it will just create what's in the middle of these two frames, when sometimes you don't want what's in the middle, sometimes you want the movement to like bounce and be a little bit more jerky in a way, and you can't do that just by doing like smoothing everything over. But to limited capacity, there is an actual use, like labor-saving use for the artist for between frames.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, may I add something? You know what AI was good for? The Willy Wonka experience.
Whoa.
Somebody give this man a medal.
That was the only good
in
use for
3D
it.
rendering,
He was memes.
Basically, 3D rendering, if you want a photoreal render, you're going to have to go with stochastic path tracing, where you trace rays in random directions, well, random but predictable directions, according to the material that they have. One of the problems is that even after a lot of samples that you're going to throw, and the whole thing is that you're going to throw samples per second, even, for example, you're going to have renders that are going to take 20 minutes just rendering one frame, that will still have lots of noise in it, and you have Intel developed an AI that takes that image that you've generated, and it knows how to process that kind of noise. And by just throwing the render that you've done already in OpenImage denoise, gives a fully clean image that you get if you let it render for a whole day. And the whole thing is literally just saving time. And it doesn't recreate an image, it just gives you the image you get if you rendered it. And that's incredible. And that's incredible in part because usually we talk about how AI wastes a lot of energy because you basically just process it and brute force an image out of it. But in this specific case, I can save like 5 times, 10 times the energy just by cleaning up a bit of the noise instead of having to brute force the overall result. It's incredible.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, funny enough, interesting segue material because we're going to talk about shortcuts.
Oh yes. Shortcuts.
How can you save time? You are on the clock. You have X amount of budget to get this done, which means X amount of time. And to change things up, we're going to start with the 3D folks. What are some shortcuts that you use to cut down on render time or composition time or, well, tea time?
Usually the shortcuts is when I usually do is mostly the rendering part. Sometimes I really want to make the animation quality or the quality look better when you actually upload it to YouTube and stuff. So also the post-production part is pretty much, because usually when you wanted to put particles under, it takes many times and it's more complicated to do than the one you can use in Blender. So usually I have to do stuff in After Effects, like put in the lens flare, pretty much the smoke and stuff. Usually done mostly in After Effects because when it comes to those. And also I mostly render them in 1080p. And whenever I do the post processing, I usually have to upscale to make it more like 4K, 4K to make it more high quality. That's mostly what I do in post processing and rendering.
Well, there's also with compositing, one of the things I did realize is that if I need to do revisions for an animation, if I just render the characters in the background separately, I can just re-render the character and that's it. Because the background might take 20 minutes and the character might take 10 seconds. And I'm thinking, well, why would I waste another 20 minutes just re-rendering that specific frame if it's just a character slightly blinking wrong? So, and one of the things that you have to do with the compositing is that you need to keep the camera between the two scenes with the character in the background. But, and afterwards you need to figure out the best recipe to composite them together. But once you figure out one recipe that looks incredible, it's so much easier to just fix that. It means that you can just re-render everything just all at once. So just saving that time is so incredible.
Yeah. Let me add something. Yes, whenever I try to render something, I always use image sequence. When I first started, I started with MP4 and I had to render it the whole thing. But the problem is it might crash to where when I rendered MP4, I have to start over from the beginning of the rendering. And then when I got the idea of using image sequence, and if I crash, I can just start up where I left off and continue on. So the risk going all the way to the beginning, which is a pain. Yes, image sequence are probably what saved me time.
Alrighty. And on the 2D side?
You want to start?
Well, sure. I mean, I guess the whole, the entirety of Rainbow Dash Presents is a whole shortcut where it's not fully animated most of the time. It's a lot of just, it's a glorified animatic. But there are like plenty of legitimate shortcuts you can take in like full animation. Like I mentioned, like AI as a use for doing in between frames, but like one way to do a shortcut is to do fewer frames of animation, and like you can do very smooth animation with like 6 frames a second. Like it's more about how you animate it, not how many frames there are usually.
Best example is animate.
Yeah, animate. There's a great bit in the new season of Invincible where they're like, so what, like he's like, yeah, there's tons of shortcuts they take in animation, and as he's explaining the shortcuts that they're taking in animation, they're doing them like oh yeah, if they're covering their mouth, you don't have to animate the mouth, it's so much easier. Or maybe it's out of frame, or there's like a long panning shot of like a big background. Like your brain doesn't recognize that nothing's being animated right now. It's just a still image, so there's plenty of shortcuts you can take.
There's actually a term for that, and it's called limited animation.
Yes.
Yes.
Let the viewer do the animation.
Yeah, let you do the work.
And then I wanted to add too, with the 2D on the background side, a lot of times with backgrounds, what we'll do is develop assets for certain backgrounds. So for example, if there's a wallpaper on a background, you're not going to redraw that wallpaper every single time. No, you're going to draw it out and then give it to all the artists, and they can paste it on that wall, which is a big thing with Hello Boss. There are wallpapers on every single wall, especially in like the fancier houses. Oh my goodness, stuff like that, or picture frames, stuff that is a repeatable pattern that you can just copy paste. It makes it so much faster. It's still drawn. Someone still drew it, but it's yeah.
Now, I would think one part of limited animation would be if a character's off the screen, you don't keep drawing or animating them, but you can't just have them pop out of existence either.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, like video games get away with it because people just expect video games to have characters popping out right in existence. So one of the things you need to do is that you need to pre-plan all the shots for the elements that you're going to have. So for example, if you have a traveling shot or we have massive elements, you need to plan if the element is going to be seen or not. It's called culling. The whole idea is that you have the fulcrum of the camera, and then you see within the fulcrum of the camera what is going to be seen or not. And if it's out of the fulcrum, you might want to take it out or not. One of the exceptions is if the object is large enough to cast shadows. And one of the good examples of why you want to be careful is that with that is one of the Pokemon games. I think it's Scarlet and Violet, where some of the elements, when they're out of the frame, they despawn. The problem is that they despawn, but their shadows also despawn, which means that you can really see how they're despawning. The lighting is a specific angle, so you're going to have to be very, very careful.
And then you have to draw a chalk outline where the shadow used to be. So this is where they ceased existing.
There's a shortcut too that I know of.
Okay.
There's a treasure trove of examples of this in, I don't know if you see the entire channel is called this, but Villager News, it's a Minecraft thing.
Oh my god!
The episodes are hilarious, but sometimes they compile all the times that they made a mistake in animation. Sometimes, like at one point they made a helicopter entirely out of villagers and it left frame and then just stayed there and kept spinning, but they didn't notice that the shadows were still in frame. So it looked like the helicopter was just sitting there. Doing nothing.
It's also worth noting, since we mentioned shadows, the way that you animate a character, you also have to account because you're going to be casting shadows. And with 3D, you do cheat a lot with poses, but you also have to be very careful to see what is going to be the angle of the character as he's walking. I remember there was a shot where it was pretty tricky because it was an overhead view, so the characters were animated to walk in a more exaggerated manner, so it will look good from the top. But the shadows were very really on the side, and you could really see how the walk cycle was set. And it looked perfectly fine on the shot, but I do have to consider the fact, because you don't think of the lighting. Sometimes the animation team doesn't know what kind of lighting is going to be involved, and they don't really have to because the lighting department is after them. But the fact that you don't account for that at first, it can be detrimental in the future. Because you might have some scenes where you animate all of it and you realize, oh, it's barely visible because it's in the dark. Yeah.
This is just for anyone in the audience who may not have seen animation class, although you guys might get a kick out of it too. Due to a online collaborative drawing video game called Gartic Phone, Rubber Ross's Gartic Phone animation series, you will actually see the shortcuts being implemented live as the different artists, because they're handing off, like, we're gonna animate 12 sequences, but everyone is only gonna do 2 frames out of them at random points. So passing off the art to new artists every frame. And they will literally talk through all this stuff as they're doing it, if you want to learn about it.
Well, we've got just about 12 minutes left, so I want to make sure we can get through and we'll save hand raising for Q&A. So, because now, let's not worry, we just had a magnificent background panel from Fluffy and Minty talking about how they create both 2D and 3D backgrounds. So is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if everyone was able to make it to it, so I kind of want to
Why not?
go to do a little brief overview on that. So, you know, background art is, I mean, it's the backbone of the animation. Without that, they'd be all in weird floating spaces, you know? So, one of the things we do to make it more streamlined is a lot of times people it will be split into layout and paint and people will do one or the other. Layout is the line art basically. It's the figuring out where things are going to be, composition, angles we want to have, putting things with like, okay, the character's going to be over here, we need to make sure that that area, everything is leading and drawing your eye to that area because that's where the character's going to be. We want people to look over there. We don't want the other parts of the background to be too distracting. It is a background. And then in the paint part, you add the lighting, you add the color, you add the sparklies, you know, all the fun sparkly glitter. A lot of times with Help Boss, I will ask them if I can do both because they're cool like that and they let me do both. So that's a lot of fun.
Yes.
And on the 3D side?
It's also worth noting, we're talking about backgrounds. You've seen all Melatonia New Generation. They do cheat a lot in terms of shortcuts because if you look at Izzy Moonbow's house, it's only seen in one shot from one very specific angle. So what you see on the exteriors is really just a matte painting. An artist actually painted in 2D the house and that's it. So when it returns and make your mark, you see that they had to make a 3D model based on it and it doesn't look as good. And all of it just comes down to preparing things ahead with...
Call waiting.
Or maybe their line was busy.
And the whole thing is that you need to prepare the background for the shot, so you have to do a layout ahead of time to really make sure that you're not going to model things that are going to be out of the frame because it's out of frame. Sometimes you're going to have to build assets that you're going to reuse because, for example, just the idea of having to remodel the same candle holder all the time would be a nightmare. And if you realize that you're going to need it for another background that has something that is in the same style, you can just get away with it. Sometimes you might tweak them a bit in proportion because they might look different in those situations, or different shader, different color. But you can actually reuse a lot in that case. And then you also have procedural tools. For example, if you have to do grass, instead of modeling every single blade, you actually have tools to basically just have a couple of blades of grass already exist and just scatter them all over the place. And you also can also scatter pebbles, rocks, lots of debris if you have junkyard. And those tools are incredibly helpful.
But now we come to the highlight. How do you suffer for your art? How do you deal with client budgets and short deadlines or low budgets? Overtime and the toxicity that comes with it. And the punishment if you're too fast. Everyone expects you. ACLP, answer this fast. Faster, faster.
Oh yes, I can't be too rushy with my projects because they will notice that. They will notice if you do it too rushy. Sometimes you have to slow it down, but then the moment is you have to be, oh gosh, the moment you won't feel burnt out and you want to continue your project, but then you have to take a break. Sometimes you might have to take a break whenever you are dealing with other stuff. And pretty much, yes, I always have to have time. And also the times when I have to do source code maker, and yes, 3500 MB, oh gosh, it crashes whenever it happens. So I have to do a separate file to make sure I lower the memory so I can render it without any issues, yeah.
Sometimes when you do take a break, though, it takes anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks to fully recover.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It just depends on your workflow.
Hiatus.
Yes.
Minty, when's the next episode? Hey, when's the new episode?
Okay.
New episode done yet? Hey.
So one of the things is that you need to set boundaries. If you, for example, if you're going to have a client, one of the things sometimes you're going to have a client that's going to try to just use this thing that, it's a passion project. We really want it to be good. It's going to be good. When it releases, you're going to have so much exposure about that. The thing is, you need to set boundaries. Like, I'm going to work on that for 16 hours because you paid me for 16 hours. I'm going to do the best I can within that. But respect that boundary, because one of the things is that if you do not, you're gonna have clients who are just gonna abuse it. They're just gonna look at it. They're gonna say, well, you know, can you do the best thing ever? We don't have lots of money, but you know, we know you've done that in the past. So we trust you, right? And then they abuse you, and that's why, unfortunately, animation is not unionized, and it really hits and it really affects the work, because you're gonna have overworked artists. And the thing with overworked artists is that you think, well, they're gonna work 12 hours on the day, so they're gonna be like 50% better, but in fact they're going to be overworked, so they're not going to be the best workers. If they overwork, they're going to be tired. You won't be able to do the best kind of work that they can. And just by setting those boundaries, having the proper budget where you actually pay your artist properly, it helps so much. And if you can make the client understand that, that helps so much better.
Yes. Judy, gotta work. And next.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things. I recently had to set up some boundaries for myself, because I get excited about projects. I get excited for the art. I get excited for the passion other people bring. But I also have to value my own time. You know, it's hard when I want to work on your project, but you're not paying me, so I will work on it at my own time. Do not give me deadlines if you're not going to pay me.
Yes. Yeah, definitely don't accept deadlines if they're not paying enough. But and charge more if their deadline is quicker, because you're going to have to do a lot more work, a lot more grinding, a lot more sleepless nights, not necessarily because you're working through them, but just because you're stressed. But and I think another thing that's like an unspoken killer is that like you're forced to take shortcuts that kind of like make the final product not as good when you're crunched for time. And you kind of, I sometimes struggle where like I'm not quite as proud of this project and how it turned out. Like the client got what they wanted, they paid for it, I got paid for it, but it's not something I love. You know, it's sort of seeping the joy out of it. And it's important that you have projects that you actually love working on and you're actually like passionate about, and you're passionate, like I want to show this to someone. Like, hey, look at this thing I made, it's so cool, I'm so happy about it. So you need to make sure that you are working with clients that understand that and are willing to work with you. You do have to come to a compromise in the middle, where you're bound by the rules of economics and reality, but also creativity. You should have room for that. Yes.
All right, now, because we talked about, sorry. One other thing is scheduling. How you just said you paid me for 16 hours. I will do 16 hours. Yeah. Do you do anything to help schedule yourself? Or I've seen on YouTube a lot of ads for again, we're back to AI helpers that update your schedule. I'm sorry, Dave, you've used up all your PTO. So just curious, how do you go about scheduling your time?
I have, so I work at a creative firm. We have producers that like set schedules and work with everyone on the team to make sure that their whole job is to make sure everyone is on schedule. So make sure you have like a good team working with you to help you schedule out. I have like Google Chrome or calendars and like with deadlines and meeting quotas. Speaking of deadlines, I have a hard out at 5. So if I have to jump, that's why.
No worries.
Yeah, this is the one thing I'm really bad at, so I don't have any advice.
Okay.
Well, I guess the best way to schedule my time, I just work from 9 to 6, regular work day, so that's it. So, and of course we have schedules like appointments and all that, but they're all at specific times. Those are already preset, so I just assume that I'll have that amount of time before I go to the meeting, and that's it. So
usually my time is when I'm available, like when I'm available. Like sometimes I do my animations usually like late at night, so we usually have to work on doing the chores. Sometimes I might have to do hangouts on Discord and want to prioritize that. Usually I just have to prioritize what is first, and then continue on to the next. So yes, I always have to set up like a time management. Time management is also important.
All right. Well, the last slide says preview time, but I believe we're going to be doing some preview of
the big display is the main hall tomorrow.
This one's 1 minute.
Okay, we've got 1 minute preview, but just before we do that, any last questions, thoughts? Show your hands. I do want to say I've observed that 2D, 3D, either way, one, all art is an expression of human ingenuity and thus shouldn't be turned over to a computer. And 2, it all requires planning, patience, and effort, no matter what the medium. So in terms of verses, again, I suck at both 2D and 3D, so I'm in awe of all these people.
Yes.
Aww.
Yes.
I'll be right. Oh, sure thing. Now, both of you have vending tables. I know Fluffy has one right by the entrance, and you just look to the left.
Yep.
And Raptor, you're just a little bit to the right and down in the middle. Oops, sorry.
I'm sharing with Twisted Sketch, so if you see on the map there, Twisted Sketch, yeah, I'm sharing a table with her.
So please do check out their tables in the vending hall. That'll be open for another hour. We've got a hard out at 5, so
I
let's
also have the panel starting
right,
right now. So go.
Thank you much.
Okay.
Appreciate you being a part of it. Give them a photo together.
Yes. Okay, everybody. Yes.
All right, say cheese.
Cheese.
Alright, thank
Thanks,
you.
Phil.
Alright.
Alright.
Alrighty.
Here we go.
So this is an animation panel that I
Got
actually
one better.
had been working on for a month. It's more of a this is more of a thing that I always had the idea that I wish that had happened. So it's called Rise of Grogar.
Rise of Grogar. Okay. Is the thing playing? Yes, it is playing.
Wait, does that mean we win?
Well, it does seem that last team sitting, the other team is standing.
We win.
I'll leave it to the audience with a round of applause. Who's your favorite 3D? 3D? Oh, you people are hard. I thought I was a tough critic, but wow, 2D. 3D for real this time? Oh, that was cold-blooded.
So that's a tie.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, and yeah, everything's all scene builded here. And again, this will be premiered also in the main stage. And this is just a preview, so it's all work in progress. Pretty much it. So, yes, so I would like to say thank you so much to all the panelists, Minty Root, Silver Quill, Justine, and what's the pronunciation?
Petty Rap.
Petty Rap. It's been an honor. Thank you so much, everybody. We have a fan animation workshop that's going to happen tomorrow at 10:30 at the main stage. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm giving out posters right here, 3 posters to everyone, and some pins. Feel free to grab one for free.